So, good morning, everybody. Good morning to this exciting breakout session. Truly, this is one that was highlighted in my agenda as well, and not only because I'm moderating, but also because I am extremely excited to find out a little bit more about, let's say, an uncharted territory within our industry, at least that most of us here at the Fleet Europe Summit are not fully aware of how things are being handled. Is that similar to commercial fleets, or is that something different? So I'm very happy to have with us here today Paul Jansen from Fleet Forum and Martial Renault-Lasserre from Doctors Without Borders. Today we will do a short presentation about the strategy of Doctors Without Borders, how an NGO is actually looking at fleet and managing and maintaining their fleets. Before we do that, Paul Jansen will do a short introduction of Fleet Forum, and then we can start. Everybody that has a question, please don't hesitate to put your questions in the session box. So you can do that, just put your questions in there, and then after the presentation of Martial, we'll come back and we'll answer shortly a couple of the questions that have popped up. So thank you very much, everybody, and Paul, you have the honors.
Thank you, Sven, and I'm very happy that we can be here today. As most of you will probably not know Fleet Forum, let me give you a very short introduction of Fleet Forum. We are a member association. What we do is we support humanitarian organizations, but also commercial transport operators in lower middle income countries to improve their fleet management performance. And typical members of Fleet Forum are the main NGOs and UN agencies like Save the Children, the World Food Programme, UNHCR, World Vision, the World Health Organization, and of course MSF, or Doctors Without Borders, but also big corporate companies like UPS or Maersk, and of course suppliers to the sector like Toyota via Toyota Gibraltar Stock Holdings, Nissan, many trucking suppliers of armored vehicles, but also academia and governmental donors. So we bring all these organizations together to learn from each other, to work together, to develop improvement projects together, and we provide resources, assessment tools, guidelines, handbooks, we training material, we deliver a lot of fleet management tactical training, and we also give, I would say, tailor-made advice to organizations. So many of you will deal with, I would say, the more common, well-known fleet management indicators. How do I reduce the cost per kilometer by another cent? How do I reduce the carbon emission of my fleet? And at the same time, you look at new technologies and innovations, electrifying your fleet, looking at the next steps in mobility. And you do that in an environment with many stakeholders, fleet users, fleet owners, service providers, manufacturers, regulators, and many others. So in most cases, it's pretty clear what you can expect in the next couple of years, and it's pretty clear what you need to do. I'm happy today that Martial is here to give you a snapshot into a world that is completely unpredictable, and in a lot of cases, almost unplannable as well. Already looking at the news of the last 2 weeks, an upcoming civil war in Ethiopia, big storm in the Philippines, it's just two of the newest crises who come on top of the others. There are still around 80 million people on the run for natural disasters and wars. Due to Corona, between 70 and 100 million people get thrown back into poverty. Most of them don't have access to medical facilities anymore. So that is the world in which Martial operates on a daily basis. So I'm very happy to hand over to Martial to give us a snapshot of what's happening in his world of fleet management.
So hello everyone. So Médecins sans Frontières translate to Doctors Without Borders. We provide medical assistance to people affected by war, conflict, epidemics, natural disaster, exclusion for healthcare, but also people living social violence, exclusion, people on the move like refugees, internal displaced people, or simply with no access to medicine. Our action is guided by medical ethics, principle of impartiality, independence, and neutrality. We are a non-profit organization, self-governed and member-based organization. MSF was created in 1971 by a group of journalists and doctors in Paris. Today, we are a worldwide movement, around 65,000 people acting in 72 countries. More than 80 of our staff are hired in the country of intervention. To give you some figures, some numbers, last year income for the whole organization was 1.6 billions. And 90% of our income are from private donors, 6.5 million of our private donors. 82% of that money is allocated to our social mission, and related to the context, we know that 6 to 10% is allocated to the mobility of operations. And we exclude in this percentage all the plane ticket and the plane we have in some country to connect the different projects. In the top 6 of countries in terms of expenditure, number of field staff, and number of patients, we have Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Central Africa Republic, and also Yemen, Nigeria, and Syria. We will come back to the first 3 later. I invite you to explore the website www.msf.org. Our team are composed of medical staff with many different specialties, but also administrator, financer, communication officer, head of project, head of mission, and logistic department to which I belong. So many of the regions in which we work are devoid of any infrastructure. So we need to have a coordinated approach that combines the different technical areas. This combination is what we call humanitarian logistics. And in the mobility department, we divide our activity in 3 axes. First one is the fleet management. The second one is mechanical maintenance activity management of generators and vehicles. And the third one is the access and the accessibility management. The main purpose of the mobility are, especially for us, are patient referral and mobile clinics, but also transport of our staff, transport of goods, evacuation of the team in case of security incidents that could happen. And we intervene in area where the population have no access to very limited education system. So the training of our team is therefore a major challenge. So in this case, Fleet Forum is a strong partner for us, providing trainings, training contents. Another big challenge we can face in our activity is the quality of the fuel and the trust we can place in the supply chain. We must pay a very special attention to this. Another big challenge we are facing now is before the COVID crisis, we launched an internal reform to decentralize the organization and thus bring more autonomy to our various projects. Consequently, we have to widen our technical solutions today and also suppliers in the different sub-regions. So from now, I will specifically speak about the operational center of Brussels, from which I'm in charge. Just in terms of volume, it's 950 drivers, 70 mechanics, around 480 light vehicles composed of 300 Land Cruiser. So For this presentation, I was proposed to take two examples of two very different contexts we worked. So for that exercise, I took Central Africa region. I was speaking at the beginning, and the COVID emergency here in Belgium. So in the region, Central Africa region, we are 100% autonomous there. And we have a standard fleet of Land Cruiser 70 series, directly ordered to Toyota TC. We prepare this vehicle in Europe in our supply centers, and then the vehicle are shipped to the capital of the missions. And then the airport begin, because just to take an example, in DRC, we delivered the vehicle in Kinshasa, and after to bring it to the project in the northern region, close to the northern borders, it's more than 3,000 kilometers and around of 2 weeks of travel in the bush. Other challenge we can face in that context when we have our fleet ready to work is to recruit the staff, to train them quickly, to build a supply chain and a stock. I can again take the example of Northern Congo. The fuel was delivered by bike. The supplier was bringing us 60 liters of fuel with 3 jerrycans of 20 on his bike. And for sure, he was multiplying the price by 3, but he was crossing war area. So in that case, we have to deal with that and to build a strong relationship with him. And the other supply chain that is a challenge is spare parts supply chain. And for that, in MSF, we have a central database, a codification system. Every article from paracetamol to brake pads, through oxygen concentrator or stickers, everything has a specific code. So we manage that with our supply system. Then another big challenge is to build a workshop, design and build the maintenance area, equip this area, and define and implement the maintenance protocol. And then the routine start. We have to rationalize our use of vehicle, ensure the safety and the security of our team, because main of security incident happen on the move. And the other big challenge you can see here in the few pictures I shared with you is accessibility. Level of water can be a big issue. The mud is present everywhere in this Central Africa region where it rains a lot. And in the bottom right picture, I shared with you a picture of what we call the black cotton soil. This specific mud eats everything. To give you an example, brake shoe in this area, lifespan of the brake shoes is 3 weeks, and brake pads are 1 month. So in that case, the good stock management and the supply is really key. Other picture I can share is the first one to show you that the hijack is our best friend. Another one is also to show that bridge related to the access. A small bridge can be a big challenge. So in that example, we had to add piece of wood just to pass. Another one that is very different from Europe, but the car wash. Car wash is a big challenge too. In this example, in this project, for example, we had spare radiators, because every day the radiator is so full of mud. To clean it in a quiet moment, we remove it every day. We change the radiator every evening, and the day after we clean it in a calm moment when the vehicle are on the move. Another one I share is a type of nice workshop we can build in the middle of nowhere, close to hospital. It's a type of our maintenance structure. The other example I wanted to share with you is also the blackboard. For maintenance follow-up with a basic training to our mechanics, it's an amazing tool, more than it could look. Even in the use of a computer generalized today, this is key to share the information of the maintenance with your team. The last one is some improvement we did in the front axle of Land Cruiser. We reinforced it because we had issues of cracks and bending. Yeah. So related to the innovation we did in that context, because facing all this issue, we decided to try to innovate. So in the past years, we used the first one is Aglund. Also the half track system we implement on the Land Cruiser on the same transmission system. We also test other vehicles like Trecol, Sherp. All this test was very conclusive. This vehicle have an excellent ability to pass and a simple maintenance. But in short, the problem was about passenger comfort and the acceptance of this type of vehicle with military style by our medical teams and the beneficiaries population. So from 2021, we will reduce the level of preparation of our standard Land Cruiser, the one you can see on the top right, and to concentrate the investment on the one working in very difficult area. So we will introduce the differential locker, the electrical winch, suspension lift kit, IOS wheel. Okay, we are open to innovation proposition focused on the Land Cruiser improvement now. Okay, and the last point, the bottom picture is, yeah, our next plan of innovation on the Land Cruiser is we plan to go with Arctic trucks. For the moment, the only company who propose such a level of improvement on the Land Cruiser. Yeah. So this is our job in Central Africa. The main challenge is about accessibility. And in March 2020, leaving my routine in that job, supervising all this project and giving technical support to everywhere, we were keeping a worried eye on this coronavirus that was coming to Europe and increasing every day. Like everyone else, and more surprisingly for a medical organization, we were surprised by the spread of the phenomenon. Moreover, we did not know how the European healthcare services would deal with it. And suddenly, announcement of a confinement and the decision of our operation center to act locally in Belgium along 3 axes, accommodation of vulnerable people, a team of nurses and psychologists working in nursing home, logistical support to hospital. So clearly, it happened a need in tourism and utility vehicle in Europe, where we are alleviating, but what quantity? Less than 24 hours before the closure of all the company. Our reflexes as emergency actor wake up, and then after a natural disaster or in the middle of a conflict, it is necessary to be inventive, fast, and efficient. Observation, active listening, discussion, and estimate take shape. During an epidemic, drastic sanitary measure must be applied, but which one? In the case of a highly contagious respiratory disease, such as tuberculosis we were experienced, the scope for using a vehicle become very, very restricted. In this context, for us, the simplest and quickest way to answer to our medical operation here in Belgium was to go around the rental agencies first. The employees and even the manager were worst this day before confinement, and they were unable to give us any perspective. And an agency from a major brand showed itself willing to listen, available and ready to take up the challenges and moving forward with us toward an unknown situation. We very quickly reached a fleet of 35 vehicles on a 1-month mini lease formula, and the price defied all competition. This partnership and trust went well because we were face to face every day, separated by a plexiglass, but humanly in active collaboration, and they're listening to each other reality and problems. We all had to make concession on our administrative functioning. It was the same with the fuel supplier. Several companies were lost in this context of confinement, and we were dragged through administrative process that were not successful and made us lose precious time. Until a regional sales representative forgot his procedure and managed the deal by phone according to our needs. And within 70 hours, I had access to fuel card, a configurable web management interface, and a discount of 15 cents per liter. When we passed, other companies going through a difficult period and being disappointed not to have had the deal approach us, we showed our situation in all transparency by proposing them to make competitive offers. In theory, some did, but in practice, none could be reliable and present every day at 7:30 to hand over vehicles and check and keys and check when it was needed. Vehicle manufacturers offer us free loan of new cars, some of them very top of the range. They wanted to help us and display their brand alongside us, but none of them were able to understand the service we needed. Provision of the vehicle in Brussels Metropole, insurance, a framework contract covering all the organization employees. And all these things in a context as a transport referent for the organization, I had to write the vehicle use and disinfection protocol for all our projects all around the road, following the scientific knowledge and the various advanced. So in the same context, I was closely observing the volume of activity of the emergency service and preparing myself and my colleague in telecommunication to set up solutions to transport infectious patients, and above all, to avoid the terrible situation in which our colleague in Barcelona found himself transporting patients in personal vehicles. So this epidemic showed us something we already knew, but we were not prepared for action in Europe. Our administrative structure, the type of contract of the operational employees, the insurance, the company vehicles, the management of fines, all things that most of you are used to manage daily using specific software. And in countries without everything, it is normal for us to reinvent what is necessary. But to be a fleet manager in Europe, when you know the number of company and specialized employee around, is frustrating, especially when you know all these people and assets are immobilized, confined all around. So the other reality to be considered for any patient transportation was the issue of the vehicle disinfection, because even if there were almost no traffic in Belgium, the cleaning and the detergent action times reduced by 2/3 the volume of patient transport on a team shift. So when you realize that an ambulance make it difficult to transport 2.5 patients in a 7-hour shift, the number of vehicles needed for a pandemic in a capital city quickly become exponential. So the conclusion of this experience is that in emergency situation, whether you work in Haiti, Philippines, Congo, or Brussels, the company that work and with whom we manage to work are simply those that forget their daily reflexes, do not promise mountains and wonders, but realistic services, put the human relationship forward with the objective of quickly building a relationship of trust and balanced mutual benefits. When the pandemic resumed a few weeks ago, and we resumed our activities, for the sake of transparency, we opened consultation with competitions, but the same company proved to be even more reactive. So Doctors Without Borders is a medical organization, and we wish above all to devote our energy and our resources to medical activities. When we prepare our vehicles ourselves, It is to get the care we want and to send it in the corner of the world we need it. When we build a garage in the bush near one of our hospitals, it is because it's the only way to maintain our asset. And in many regions, and particularly for city vehicles, if we had a specialist partner who could offer us transport service with transparent fleet management and measured cost, we would opt for these solutions. Failing to build such trusting relationships over the long term, we have a self-sustaining approach to ensure efficient mobility and good use of our donors' money. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcel. What a different world that is. That is clear. I mean, that is. I think the presentation clearly showed that you are confronted with obstacles or challenges that, let's say, most commercial fleets do not have. That is for sure. I'm also wondering a little bit, and that's a question that pops up here as well, is when looking at targets, or at least the challenges that you're confronted with and the targets that you want to achieve with your fleet. I mean, how important is, let's say, sustainability if looking at your fleet? How important is the search for electrification? Is that at all possible? Is that something that you guys are looking at as well? Or is that, okay, that's very below on our priority list? How can I see that?
Paul, something? No? Okay.
Yeah. Shall I tap in maybe here? Because I think it's a sector-wide question. And it's there's a strong pressure on humanitarian organizations for improving the sustainability of transport in general, but also of that transport. And using hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles is definitely one of the instruments that can be used to reduce emissions of the fleet. So we are actually in discussion with many organizations to have one voice actually to the car manufacturers. And at the moment, what you see is that the OEMs are pretty careful by introducing them in, let's say, sub-Saharan Africa. There's a strong need and even a request from organizations to start at least piloting with hybrids or electric vehicles. But it's still a big challenge, as, like I said, the big OEMs do not, let's say, as they cannot guarantee after-sales support yet, they don't want to get in there at this moment. But it's definitely a discussion, and we see, because you see many local initiatives in Uganda, Kenya, you see taxi companies with fully electric fleets, but it's all local initiatives. And what we really want is the OEMs to support the sector with starting to, let's say, build up a hybrid and electric fleets in the humanitarian sector as well.
Yeah. And is that, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Marcel.
No, if I just can add the short things. For sure, we are not close to electrification. Why not in cities? But just an indicator to show you, I think more than 80% of the region we intervene, we produce the energy. We produce it with diesel generator. So we will not fill our electrical car with diesel generators. No. It's not logic. No. So this is the reality we face. So we are really in a different dynamic.
Yeah. No, but that's clear. How, because I find that an interesting one, and that's also one of the questions that popped up. How can suppliers, and because we got a lot of suppliers here on this event, how can suppliers help you with this, Marcel? Is that, I mean, are there enough options? Are there enough solutions available to make sure that you can do your work properly in those regions, as we discussed?
Yeah. First is to have an interest on what we do, to start to understand our dynamic, maybe to change a bit their paradigm, and to be flexible also as a supplier. Sometimes we try, we test, but we work in a volatile sector. So yeah, flexibility is very important. And to imagine not to make big money, but more to build a trust relationship on long term and to test slowly by slowly, to test equipments and more to look on the long term. And because the money is not ours, it's from our donors. So
yes. But I can imagine, as Jean-Philippe also said in the question box, I can imagine that the first and foremost priority for you guys is the service, the quality, the trust in the service, and that you can do your job. That's the first priority, probably.
Exactly. The availability of the vehicles for our medical operation. Every time we need to move an ambulance, we just need to switch on the engine and to go. So the first indicator for us is the availability of the vehicles, and we follow accurately the times of immobilization in the workshop. But I can tell you it's not a lot. It could surprise people, but the vehicles are not immobilized more than 1 or 2 days, exceptionally.
Okay.
We have preventive maintenance procedure, and
All right, no, but that's great. Well, I hope that a lot of suppliers saw this or will see this, because of course this video will become available on our sites and on our YouTube channels, and hoping that indeed they can find a way, making sure that they can support organizations like yourself. I think this is utmost important. I just want to say, keep up the good work. Obviously, we're very thankful for that. Thank you both for this interesting presentation.